Hello, this is Captain Jim for the Monopoly Project. We're here on the Monopoly Project yacht on Bella Vista Lakes in Gilbert, Arizona. We're doing our floating book review for February 12th. Today is actually Super Bowl Sunday, and Super Bowl starting about now, and so all the bikini girls are off at the Super Bowl, so you just got me on the yacht here. And so we're going to review two books today. We're going to review both books were recommended by Jeff, our partner, our Monopoly Project partner and friend. And so the first one is called Hold. It's a real estate acquisition book, single family homes, very Monopoly Project-like. And so the second one is a self-help book called The 10 Times Rule, 10X Rule. And so we will be reviewing these two books. I will be right back with the first book. Thank you. Hello, this is Captain Jim. We're back for our first book review here on Sunday, the 12th of February. As I said before, it was a Super Bowl Sunday, and the game is on now, but we're here reviewing this first book called Hold. You can see it is written by a number of authors. Steve Chater is the main author, but it's also Janice Doty, Jim McKissick, Linda McKissick, Jay Papasan, and Gary Keller wrote a forward to it. And so this book's 320 pages, paperback. It was written in 2012, so it's not real new. This is very similar, like I said, to the book we reviewed before, Gary Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Investor, which we first reviewed at the beginnings of the Monopoly Project in October of 2019. It's very similar to that. It's not surprising, since Keller's not just a co-author, he also wrote the foreword. And the Amazon description is basically take hold of your financial future, learn how to obtain financial freedom through real estate. So it's we like it because it's a basic Monopoly Project book, buying real estate, single family homes to achieve financial independence through real estate, not working in a W-2 job, but actually owning investment property. So I'll just mention a few good things I like about the book first. It's not about, literally in the introduction, it's page XV, which I guess is Roman numerals for 15. Hold is not about getting rich quick. So, like I said, that's very Monopoly Project light, and so we like that. So let's jump into it, jump into the review right away. It's about acquiring property, that's the title, Hold, as in a buy and hold strategy to achieve real estate success. But he basically goes through 6 stages of the buy and hold strategy. The first is to find the property, obviously. Second is to analyze the property financially and otherwise. And the third one is actually buying the property. And once you've bought the property, then you want to manage it, and finally you want to grow your portfolio. And so he has a chapter basically on each of these, and it's a very, very good and basic information. I list in the review on the blog post, there's a bunch of comments about the buy and hold strategy, and so you can look at those links and see some of that. A couple things that I didn't like on page XXXI, again I think that's Roman numerals for 31. He does go into the real estate team concept. I think, I'm not a fan of that. I guess you saw the geese fly by, huh? We have geese, we have pelicans, we obviously have a lot of ducks, we have a lot of coots. Some of them are young and some of them are old, besides me. But we have a lot of animals on the lake, and for some reason now the whole lake is covered with these little bugs that are flying just above the surface, and the ducks go out and eat them, and the coots too. I can see them now, they're actually eating all these little bugs. So I guess it's a good source of protein, as we've learned in the news for the last few years or so. Anyway, back to the real estate team concept. I think it is important later, obviously, the stage we've reached. We have a team, we have lawyers, we have CPAs, we have brokers, real estate acquisition brokers, we have loan brokers and all this stuff. But it'll happen later, and it'll happen organically. I don't like it initially when people make a big deal out of this, because I see it as an excuse, as an impediment to get started. And the other reason why I don't like it is if you either get distracted by this, or you do this, you don't get to make your mistakes when you're still relatively small. And so I think it's a little overblown concept that you need a team behind you. You just need to get started at first. And that's not to say you don't need a mentor, either a literal person or a book or a strategy, somebody you trust you can talk to. But this whole concept of having a team, to me, it's an impediment, and it's an excuse not to get started. We're going under the bridge here over Lakeview Street, Avenue. I don't know what the actual designation is, but Lakeview goes right down the middle of Bella Vista Lakes. So he goes into a lot of formula. Let me jump ahead again on page XXVI, which I think is 36, because there's one more thing I don't like in here about. And so I'll mention the two things I didn't like, and then I'll go on to some better stuff. But he does put in this thing about negotiating a 10% discount. And as you know from my previous videos, that's sort of one of my other pet peeves, is who's going to give you freely 10% of their asset? I mean, you're either going to have to cheat somebody, a widow or somebody, or to get them to give you a discount from the fair market value. I mean, that's the definition of fair market value. Now, note that this is different than seeing an alternate or a higher use for the property. If you see a property that could be rented out for a much higher rate for a different reason, and you buy it from the person who owns it now at the fair market value for its current use, then you're not buying it at a discount for fair market value. You're buying it at a discount from fair market value for its current use. You just have a better use for it. And we got two personal examples of that. We bought a commercial property knowing that one of the tenants was really not economically able to afford that space, plus their rent was below market value. We bought the property based on that tenant, and we paid the owner the fair market value given that tenant. But when we took over the property, we moved that tenant out and replaced them with a tenant that could actually economically work in that space, and they are paying 50% higher rate. So the value of the property, we paid fair market value. It's now 1.x, and I don't know what x is. I should probably go back and calculate, how much we actually increased the value of the property based on the increased rents. But that's one example. Before I go to the second example, you can see there's a Super Bowl party here. So we're going to see a lot of Super Bowl parties as we go around. The other one is we bought an asset, the assisted living facility that I talked to you about in Bakersfield with our partner and future son-in-law, John. And again, the same thing as we bought it at the value that the previous seller was operating at it, and he was operating under a certain set of regulations and conditions and programs. We have a way that we think will yield a much higher return based on a different program, and we're in the process of putting that into place. But assuming we can carry that off, then of course we bought the property at fair market value, but we repositioned it so that it's now paying a higher rent. And I'm worried about my boats making some funny noises. So that, again, this whole thing about buying something at less than fair market value, to me, is not a valid strategy. I mean, if you can find a better use for something, or you can increase the rents, or somehow you can increase the income from an asset, it doesn't even have to be real estate. I mean, that's what Warren Buffett and all those guys do, is they buy companies and they get them to increase their revenue, increase their income, and that increases the value. So anyway, let me go back to the review of the book. Basically, there's a lot of formulas in here. He talks about the rule of 72, appreciation, cash flow, debt pay down, and all that stuff. So none of that is really new. And so, again, there's a lot of filler in this book, like there is in a lot of these kind of books. I mean, if you've read one, you get 60% of the value. If you read 2 to 5, then you get 90% of the value. And there's very few of these books that actually have something new, at least in my experience. And like I said earlier, the real thing is to get started. Again, on page 11, chapter 2, he's got a criteria for how do you pick the location of your properties, and it's way too complicated. He's got all these circles and overlapping circles and this and that and this and that, and again, to me it's an impediment to starting. It's just making it way too complicated. While I was writing these notes, Michelle walked in, and she gave me a tip on how to hire people. Our property manager at our apartments just quit, and so she actually hired a person to replace her, who's coming in a few weeks. But in the meantime, Michelle's been in the office acting as the property manager. But she reminded me of her criteria for hiring maintenance men, and that is she has to look at their hands, and if their hands are soft and smooth, then they're not a maintenance man. If the guy's hands are all rough and chapped up and cut and everything, then that's a maintenance man. And I use maintenance man for both women and men. We actually had a woman maintenance man for a month or two, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, which led to some interesting stories. But in any case, there's a management tip for you. If you want to hire a maintenance man, I guess this goes even if you're hiring somebody who comes over to do some sort of job at your house, look at their hands. If their hands are smooth and well manicured, they're just salesmen. They're not actually going to do the work themselves. You want somebody who's actually going to do the work themselves, somebody who knows what they're doing and who's be responsible and everything. So in any case, so overall, like I said, I won't go into any more detail than what I said above, because this is a fairly standard book on the subject. There's nothing really bad. I mean, the only things I objected to is you can see the sun's right behind me now, so you can't see me, which is probably a plus. This is a fairly standard book. I don't like the 10% discount off fair market value or the build a team. The weakness of the book, like most of them, is there's nothing new. It's been written over and over and over again. I think I included that in some of the links. But it's not a bad book, and like I said, do I recommend it? Yes, I recommend it, but you're not going to learn anything that you haven't learned already. And finally, I want to make a brief comment. I'm already up in 11 minutes, so I've talked way too much for you guys you're probably all nodding off asleep or switching over to the Super Bowl. But I did want to make a comment on the buy and hold strategy. The buy and hold strategy is an effective strategy, and it's what we have effectively done. We've only ever sold one of our properties that we bought, and that was a mistake. It was a mistake because we did it incorrectly for a number of different reasons, but it was a relatively small financial deal. But in any case, buy and hold is a strategy, but you can also buy and flip or trade up and all these others. So there's no one right strategy. It's what kind of risks you want to take. They all work. The buy and hold strategies in general are a little slower than the other ones, and so but it does work. And it is an effective strategy, especially if you're not in a hurry and you're not really and you want to be somewhat risk averse. It's much more effective. So in any case, like I said, the book is Hold, and we definitely should take a look at it. And like I said, nothing's particularly new, but nothing particularly bad. Thank you, everybody. This is Jim for the Monopoly Review, and now we're going to go on to one more book that's sort of in the same field. It's more self-help motivational, but that'll be our next book, and we will see you there in a few minutes. Goodbye.